Good morning, guys. Okay, so yesterday we have seen the apex trigger, that the context variables we have seen, and then what are the different ways of that throwing the validation error. Okay, it's just like if department is not entered on the student, if you want to throw the error, so we can throw the error on this. If you see that, okay, so have you tried that order of execution learning? We learn that it's very important, very important interview question as well. Keep learning that one. Okay, this is the validation. Let's see. Now we are validating on the same record. Okay, so the triggers mostly what we can do is first one. Through the triggers, we can do some complex validations. Second one, okay. Complex validations, email sending. This we can do through the any trigger or any apex code as well. Email sending and complex logic execution. This is what we can use for a trigger. So as we know that triggers operation types will be there. Means this not operation type specific. See what kind of triggers. Kind of triggers is usually if you want to update the same record values, let's say on update case, you can operations on same record, same object. Second one, operation on parent objects. Third one, operation on children object, child object. Okay, so I'll let you know how to do the operations on same object and parent object and child object. Okay, so parent will be not only the same parent, it may be the grandparent or it may be the third level, fourth level, however it is. Okay, child also will be having a different base as well. Okay, now let's see, I'm going to add operation types. The first one, validations or operations on the same object. See, validations must be done on only before triggers. That I have already explained. Validations or and as well validations and setting values should be done only in before triggers. Means let's say I do not have department, but I need to set some department value by default. Okay, so let's say here students department, any one of this. So this is the department. Okay, so by default, if it is blank, I want to set this value as department value. I don't want to throw the error. Then just remove this. You guys know that how to set the values to object st dot department equals to, this is what you can. Okay, now here if you try to create a new record to understand this is very simple. You guys have already done. If you want to throw the error, st dot field name dot add error. If you want to set the value, field object dot field name equals to then value. As it is the lookup field, I am giving the parent record by ID. Okay, if it is any type, text type or any date type, you can give the date on this one. Okay, now let's see. Let me create one student. Test. Okay. You want training? I'm not giving anything. Just save the record. Once record is saved, department should be populated on this. Say this department is populated. Okay, because the trigger we are setting the value. Okay, it should be done in the before trigger. What happens if you give is after? Giving is after. So to understand this one, what happens if you give is after? Means if you want, if you set the value the after trigger, so what happens on this one? It throws the error. Let me show that error how it works. Yes. It is student trigger execution on after insert caused by system final exception. Okay, if you set any value to the records in the trigger, that doing the after event, any after event, it shows the value. The error like record is read only. Okay, you cannot set any value. Even if you try to delete any record, the trigger, so which is in the this one, let's say is before, going to delete this record, delete of st. Okay, if I try to do this, you should not delete any record. Test. You cannot modify that collection variable like a trigger.new. You are iterating the trigger.new. That trigger.new cannot be modified. See this. Before insert caused by system as object exception. DML statement cannot be operate on the trigger.new or trigger.old. Okay, you cannot do any DML operations on trigger.new or trigger.old. Okay, that is line number 13. It will throw the error. So you should always use that, and you should not delete any record from the trigger.new or trigger.old. And in after events, you should not set any values. It should be only in the is before. Okay, so that's why you have to handle these events very carefully. What kind of event is before event or after event? Then what kind of operation? It's insert or update. Then conditions should be there. Okay, so this is how it should be. Now, let's say we can validate something. So this is how you have to set or do the operations on same object. Validations and setting the value. These two are only there in the trigger, nothing other than that. Okay. So now let's say I have to validate in different other ways, like when the record is getting updated. Okay, so I need to check if department is IT on update case. If department is IT, I need to check student email. Student email is not there, then I have to throw the error. So here our requirement is, this is one scenario. Means what we are going to do is we are validating by checking the parent record. Okay, in the trigger. If throw a validation date of student, if its department is IT, mail is blank. Okay, this can be achieved through the validation rule also. So now you have to understand the requirement first, throw a validation on update. Okay, they are saying that validation. So validation means you should write in the before trigger. Okay, so first condition, if trigger dot is before, here as it is a validation, we are writing trigger dot is before, and then they are saying on update. On update, then you should write, as they are asking for update, trigger dot is update. Now we are clear on this, right? So this is how you have to write. On validation, validation means before, then update means you have to is update, then students, if its department is IT, we have to check whether it's IT, its department is IT or not, right? So here there is something I have to explain to you this. Let me show this. Not going to do anything here, just will print the values. System of department. String. So here our requirement is, if department is IT, we have to throw the validation. Let's say first thing, if this is not required here, if as the requirement students department is IT, its department is IT, st dot department equals to T, right? Then and email is blank, and string dot is blank of st dot student, then throw the validation. We know that st dot student email dot add error of please enter the email is what the uh, add error message we need to display this. Okay, now let's try this. Editing this record. Here we have Apex test, department is IT, student email is not given, so it should throw the error now. Okay, save it.
Sanjay, I think you have given the insert, not update. The Apex code.
Okay,
Okay.
is answered right. Please update. Thanks for remembering. Okay, now let's go ahead and edit this. Save. See this? Invalid IT. Trigger, student trigger, and number 8, column number 1. Invalid ID. Okay? So why? Because if you see this, there is a record, right? Execute like student double underscore D department where E equals to see this one. So what is the department value? It is this is the ID. We do not have the department name here. So actually IT field, whatever the department value is IT, it is on the name field. It's not, so actually it's, here it is displaying IT, but indirectly in the database, it will be the ID of that record. Okay. So ID of the record. See this. Why ID will be stored in the database? Because ID will be unique. Maybe you can change the name of the that record name and anything you can change, but ID you can't change. That's why always on the reference fields ID only displayed. Sorry, ID only stored on this. So here department name is IT. So we need IT. How to get this one? So you know this one, department transport dot securities. IT. Okay, so this is how you can get, but inside the trigger, you will get only IT, I mean, department name only. So department ID only you will get inside the trigger. So if I get this one, let's say, what I do not have a department name here. So I need to query the department name here. So if you use, let's say, r dot name, okay, it won't give here. Let me display here. System dot keep an eye on this. This is very important. Department. Okay. Now I'm just commenting out this lines because it is throwing the error. So what we need? We need department name here. To compare the parent value, we need a department name. But here, edit, save it. You will get the logs here. Okay, this is the log. Go ahead and try to debug that. See, department is there, but department name is not there. Remember that In the trigger.new or trigger.old, you cannot have any parent values. You will always have only these IDs only. You cannot have department underscore or dot name or something. It won't be there. Okay, always only the ID of that parent record can be captured. Nothing other than that. Okay, so what should we do if we do not have that value? This trigger simple. You need to query that. Okay, first thing, say first, if you do not have the value whatever you need, so this is not there in your hand. So first, careful, whatever you do not have in the trigger, you should get it from the database. So where it is in the database. So you need to get from the database only. If you need to get it from the database, you need to write as okay. Okay, so for now, let me write this. First, student image is blank, checking. Then I need to check the IT also, I mean department also. String dot is not blank of st dot department. Means department also should not be blank. Email should be blank and department should not be blank. So as we have the department ID in this one, we need to get query like, see this. See, this is department. I need name, prime, where ID equals to something. If I give ID here, that record will come here, right? Please, you can get it. So same way, you can copy this query, get here. It is department D equals to, you can like write, you can write like this one. Okay, I have I have record department where it is. Now kind say this, if okay, then through the message. Say this. So whatever we do not have in our hand, we are going to retrieve this and then do this one. Okay, so get it. See this. And so we are taking email again department. We can't write it. I mean, right? Throws come. So what we are trying, we are just trying to get these records and get the information on the specific record information, and we are trying the like, so department whatever we need we are getting from the database and comparing with this one and throwing the error because we are already checking here it is. Now let's try this. Say, so when you query whatever you do not have in the trigger context variables, if you want to get it, then you have to write the SQL query. Try to save. Please enter the email address. Okay. Now here, this is fine. As we are creating only one record and we are adding only one record is throwing this one. Let's say insert also. Let's try this. Two. Save it. Set. This is why it is not given. Is insert. Let's go here. This is not okay. Department is not given. This is throwing the error because department we have given and we have not given. Okay. So now here observe the logic or debug log here. And see the email operations. So how many SOQL query rows are there? 1 out of 50,000. And then how many SOQL queries are used? 1 out of 100. Only 100 records are required. Okay. So let's say here I'm going to write the see if you are inserting 1,000 students from the data loader or import widgets or workbench. So let me create from the Apex developer console student underscore c stays equals to stop for stu1 stu say 200 plus plus. Okay. So I'm going to add sts student stu I name it, then date of join. So let's see system dot is required, training is required. So we have to give any of the training ID first. Okay, let's go here. department. This is the departments. So whatever we are going to create the records through the UI, I'm trying to create through the Apex, nothing other than that. Okay. So if you have any questions, just let me know. What we are trying to do, we are creating 200 records at a time using the list. Okay. So 1 to 200, we are iterating. Student name we are giving, date of join, training, department. 4 fields we are giving and inserting the records. Set STS. Try to execute this. What is the error? Too many SOQL queries, 101. Because so there are only 100 SOQLs are allowed. But we are using, if we are inserting 200 records, 200 SOQLs are getting executed. How? Where they are going to do. See, you are inserting 200 records here. The 200 records will be in this trigger mode. Okay, so this for loop, what it does, it iterate and handle record by record. First record is executing and one SOQL query is executed. And second SOQL, second third SOQL, fourth SOQL. If you have 200 records, 200 SOQL queries are getting executed. But the program will throw the error if it reaches 100 SOQL queries and trying to execute the 101 SOQL query. Okay, so now how to handle this scenario? This is called trigger bulkification. Someone will say this, the trigger bulkification, and that too. So in the trigger best practices, you should not use SOQL queries inside the for loop. This is one best practice. You should not use SOQL query inside the for loop. Then someone will ask that what happens if you use that? Then it will throw the 101 SOQL query. So we should not use this one. Then how? What to do? Okay, so this is what we are going to do. Okay. Let me write. See this. Alternative way, what we can do. See, instead of running one SOQL query, get all the SOQL query. I mean, so instead of querying department, one department at a time, query all department at a time. Only use one SOQL. Like, see, first department, sorry, first student, we have department A. Second student, department B. So third student, department C. Something like that. So I have IDs. Let me separate those IDs. Simply, let me add how to avoid using this one. See here, map of ID, department. That one is called C. D says department record. Equals to of the department. See, why we are using department? So sorry, map. Why we are using map? So map is using to get the records. So just to store key value page means if you have a key and you need to get the value, you have to use the map. Here you have ID, but you need record name, right? So here ID. Why we are saying ID as a key? Because the ID is only the common point from the student object and department object as well. That is only the common point, and that is only the unique value. So whatever the unique value we need to check, that is only we have to here on this. Okay. So here, what I'm trying to do is department. See, instead of validating here, remove this. Okay. What I'm trying to do is put off. Okay. SD dot department. And we need to put value as well, right? I'm giving value as simple. Okay. So again, once it is done, what I'm going to do is I have already explained you guys how we can query the records from the database. Okay. Simple. After this for loop, okay. So where this for loop is executed. See, after this for loop, we need to query the records. Use this records and keep in department equals to is the map, right? So new ID comma department using this one instead of that. Let's see, you'll be getting confused. We can use this. Okay, let me use this first. What is this query? In. So we need to pause IDs. I have already explained you what is in. If you want to set more than one value in the equals condition, then we can use this. Save it.
For ending, we can use a key set. So there is a spelling mistake.
Department dot.
That does not exist. Okay, so now this one. Okay, so okay, let's see how to do one more thing. Next, now just iterate the records again and again. So second time, iterate the records. Iterate. So again iterating. Now we need to check. Okay, so if the email is blank and student department, we need to check, right? So again, we have to check. First, we need to department ID. Department is required, right? If department dot get of, you know, this SD dot, okay. You will be getting confused. Let me add department for C equals to, okay, then D dot name equals ID, okay, SD dot student email dot error of please enter email. If you see this logic is first time we are not iterating. First time we are not throwing the error. See this? First, whatever we need, we do not have in our hand. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to get that from whatever we do not have, that is in the database. So we are writing the query. Okay. Better to write this one. So this is one way of, if you need to store ID and record in the map, use this one. Else, if you say, let's say, if I say this, if department name equals to IT, throw the error, something, or let's say, if type is something. So the common point is student type and department type. If I give this, then you have to take it as a string. Okay? I'll give that another example. So better, what you can do is for department, so see D. So use this. Finally, keep this one. What is the common point? We have common point as ID, right? So D dot ID and then department. This is simple. Okay. Now, if you insert 200 records or let's say 500 records if you are trying to insert, okay. So 500 records won't come here because at a time trigger can handle only 200 records. Okay. If you insert 1000 records or 2000, 10,000 records also, it handles only 200 records at a time. Okay, that is the trigger size, basic size. So 200 records will come, 200 departments will be there. So 200 departments, the maximum one, and then 200 records can be queried at a time. That means only one SQL query will be executed, and then that will be stored in this one. Here, but the same it will be used. So as we have used only one SQL query, there will be no issue. Now let's try this. What is this? It is throwing the validation. Field custom validation. Please enter email. Okay. So this is how it has to do the validations on this one. Okay. Any questions on this, guys? Could they pause the recording and then write on this one?